They deserve better. They literally defended our democratic republic against a violent mob. And this week, 2 cops who held the line against Trump's mob on January 6th walked into a federal courthouse ready to defend our country again. Only this time, the mob, they're not carrying flagpoles. This time, they're just backed by a check for $1.776 billion of our taxpayer dollars, with a memo line that reads, "For whoever beat Officer Hodges the hardest." And the cops, Harry Dunn, Daniel Hodges, 2 cops that you watched on TV back in 2021, getting their faces kicked in by guys in Punisher t-shirts and carrying flagpoles. And on Wednesday, they filed a federal lawsuit to shut down Donald Trump's brand new Anti-Weaponization Fund, which is somehow simultaneously the most honestly named and most dishonestly named slush fund in American history. It's anti-weaponization in the same way that Putin is anti-poisoning. And here's a quick recap. Trump, who runs the federal government, dropped a $10 billion lawsuit that he was personally bringing against the IRS, which also reports to him. The IRS's own lawyers reportedly thought that they could win this case and told the Treasury that they could do so in a memo. Yet instead, the Department of Justice, also run by Donald Trump and his former personal attorney Todd Blanche, settled the case. So Trump settled the case with Trump by giving Trump a formal apology and by setting aside $1.776 billion taxpayer dollars to compensate, quote, others who suffered weaponization in lawfare. But let's be clear about who's getting this money, because on Tuesday, that acting AG Todd Blanche testified to a Senate panel, and senators asked him, will the people who beat up cops on January 6th be eligible? Will the Proud Boys get a check? Blanche said, I will definitely encourage the commissioners to take everything into account.
Will you encourage them to have a guideline that says those who have been convicted of violent acts against police officers are not eligible?
I will definitely encourage the commissioners to take everything into account when determining who should get compensation.
Right. So Dunn and Hodges, these cops filed suit, 29-page complaint, and the lawsuit is brutal. In one quote, it says, in the most brazen act of presidential corruption in this century, President Donald J. Trump has created a $1.776 billion taxpayer-funded slush fund to finance the insurrectionists and paramilitary groups that commit violence in his name. And you know what the most wild thing about that sentence is? Not a single word of it is hyperbole. It's just the plain English description of what is happening in our country. It sounds outrageous because what is happening in our country is outrageous. And the lawsuit goes on to cite the 14th Amendment, Section 4, the part of the Constitution that was adopted right after the Civil War, that says, neither the United States nor any state shall assume or pay any debt or obligation incurred in aid of insurrection or rebellion against the United States. That is a sentence that was written in 1868 by people who had just spent 4 years watching Americans die for the Confederacy. And they wrote that sentence down specifically so that no future president, no future politician could ever try what Trump is trying right now. It's like our great-great-great-grandparents wrote a sticky note that said, don't pay traitors, and stuck it on our Constitution. And then Don the Con just walked over and saw the sticky note, and since he probably can't read, he ate the sticky note, probably thinking that it was an ultra-processed slice of cheese. Meanwhile, Jamie Raskin moved to subpoena Blanche, wants him to testify under oath, along with Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and the rest of the architects to come testify under oath. Yet House Republicans blocked the subpoena. The House Republicans could have just sat there and nodded along. They could have asked softball questions and then gone home. Instead, they took the affirmative step of voting to make sure that no one under oath has to explain how taxpayer money is getting funneled to people who tried to eliminate cops while they were doing their job, while these mobsters were chanting that the same fate should befall the vice president at the time, Mike Pence. Hell, even Lindsey Graham, of all people, said, I think we need to ask more questions. Well, Lindsey, you, sir, are a sitting senator. Asking questions is your literal job. Even Bill Cassidy called it a spit in the eye insult to all my taxpayers in Louisiana. And you have press like the Wall Street Journal editorial board, and then you have Lindsey Graham and Bill Cassidy all landing on the same side of an issue against Donald Trump. That issue is so obviously corrupt that even the cockroaches are running from the kitchen late. Dunn and Hodges, these cops held the line for our country on January 6th, and they are holding it again. The least we can do is keep telling their story. Do me a favor, share this story so that it does not die.